back to episode 142 of Tall Boy Radio. Now, let's get things all out on the open at first. This isn't the episode that we planned to do. We've had a last-minute change in schedule, and we had zero stuff planned. So what we're going to do is very last-minute and very fly-by-the-night, which is the Tall Boy Radio way that you've come to love. Isn't it? I don't know. But anyway, we want to wish our guest who should have been on all the best. He's had some bad news today, so all the best. And we're going to be catching up with him at some point in the future. We'll be talking Lego because we know you really enjoyed the last episode that we did on Lego. But this week, we're going to talk about something different. It's just the three of us. We've cobbled it together at the last minute. So let's speak to the first person who's going to be talking cobblers.
Andy, that's you? Oh, no, that's me. Yeah, good to be back, guys. I apologise for missing last week. Sort of work stuff got in the way, unfortunately. Looking forward to this, as Adam has already alluded to. No doubt there'll be a couple of sort of left turns in there somewhere, as per our normal episodes. And for tonight, I've actually got two drinks, neither of which I've tried before. So the first one, you can see that is Ultra Phase, which is 8.5% double IPA. I'm drinking that out of I haven't had that glass for that. It's Tall Boy Radio. Oh, can't really see it. Anyway, there you go. Tall Boy Radio podcast glass. It's lovely. Really, really nice. We'll be definitely trying that again. And then I've got this Beavertown Solar Flare, which is 8% hazy double IPA as well. So yeah, all good. A couple of nice beers, and let's see where we go.
Very nice, very nice. Some very good choices there. Andrew?
Howdy. I've got a TBR Classic H2O in a Chinnis glass.
That's definitely not a TBR. Let's have that out of the way right here, right now.
I'm looking forward to talking about Use Your Illusion.
What was that released at the same time as?
Honestly, I'm gutted I missed that episode because Adam was just mentioning off camera. Then it sort of spawned from something that we always used to talk about, like which one was better, Use Your Illusion 1, Use Your Illusion 2. So Adam was like, I'm definitely going to do an episode on it, and then I couldn't be on it. Just for the record, 2 is definitely better than 1, 100%.
We agreed.
Well, you didn't, because I wasn't there. So
listen, that's gone down in the annals of time, or the annals of time, whichever one you prefer. The beer I am drinking tonight, and this is one. Remember when we had Ryan and Brad and maybe Dick? I think it was actually the episode we did with them before that from Pub Time. They recommended a beer to us to try, so I picked this one up in Waitrose. It's available in Hickories as well. I've had it there. It is the New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Hazy IPA. And I'll be honest with you, it is every bit as good as Ryan told us it was. And while we're giving a shout out to our podcast friends, I'm drinking it out of a designated quizzes glass, keeping it all from the USA tonight. So from USA to the UK, two things that we definitely do have in common is diabolical politics at the moment. Yes, folks. We try and keep things upbeat. We try and keep things happy for you here at Tall Boy Radio. Maybe there'll be some diamonds in the turds, but we're going to be talking politics tonight. We're going to be talking about just the state of politics and just really seeing if the last few years has made our faith in our politicians wane a little bit. So who wants to go first? You don't have to share which way you vote. That's certainly not something we're going to be asked you to do. But if you want to talk about politics, your general feeling towards it at the moment, and the stuff that you're seeing in the world and how it's affected you, who wants to go first?
Well, it's basically got to rack it, hasn't it? So, whether or not it's I don't know whether it's a sort of, this is a completely different episode, whether it's a sort of post-COVID hangover and people are sort of, oh my God, like, they were having a go at Boris when he was in, and I mean, to be fair, whoever was in power during COVID, they were going to take it right back. And so, I mentioned to Adam earlier, is it politics or is it the propaganda that goes alongside it that sways? And is it the politicians? Is it our perception of the politicians that we are given via media and social media and news outlets and all that. I think there's an element of that, but I've just lost faith. I've just lost faith in all, even just for them basically to tell the truth, and that's an awful thing to say for a 49-year-old bloke who not is not as it has a keen interest in politics, but certainly tries to keep his eye on at least roughly what's going on. I'm getting to the point where I'm a bit like the old sort of laissez-faire sort of just, it is what it is. It doesn't matter who's in, they're going to lie. So that's just where I'm at.
So when you say that, dude, so you sort of say post-pandemic, but I think people were a little bit sympathetic to Boris at first, given the fact like these are fairly unique circumstances. Now, there's someone could argue that he was every bit as complicit in inflicting those bad decisions upon us. I'm not going to go down that route. We don't want to get ourselves kicked off YouTube. We know how it works. We know how censorship works. We've been there on Facebook. So people were a little bit, I think, sympathetic to Boris. That literally nobody else has ever faced anything like this, really, in the history of politics, unless you go back to 1666 and the Great Plague then. So I think people were a little bit sympathetic. And then, as it turned out, I don't think we should have been too surprised by it. Boris turned into be a giant lying bastard, didn't he? When you think about it, And he had previous in terms of Brexit and his bus, his 350 million a week that we sent to Europe that we could be spending on the NHS that all of a sudden disappeared when he accidentally won the Brexit argument and then couldn't go through with his promises, and even back before then, prior to when he was in office as he were, like he was as Prime Minister, him and his journalist pal had conspired to beat up another journalist fellow who was grassing up on him. And he lied about that as well. And and he's lied to numerous women. Not all done that from time to time. With his behaviour, he doesn't know how many bloody kids he's got. Should we have been too surprised that he was a massive liar?
I don't know, because no, we shouldn't be surprised because his track record is a simple answer. But you flip it and you sort of say, were we surprised? No. Should we be surprised? Yes, because of the office that he holds. But then you go back. I mean, I suppose my lifetime, and I was born in 73. So, probably would have only really, maybe Thatcher. What Thatcher was? 79?
Yeah, Thatcher was 79. Ted Heath was in office in 73.
So Ted Heath 73. Obviously, don't really remember that. Thatcher when I was 79, was 6. I remember Margaret Thatcher. I don't remember obviously politics or anything like that. But did she lie? Obviously, I didn't take a keen interest in politics when I was 6. But yes, probably. I'm sure there was some mistruths spoken about various sort of picket lines and various sort of strikes to do with mines and all that sort of stuff. So, are we surprised? Should we be surprised? No, I don't think we should. Should they be held account? And this is, I suppose, it's a bigger argument. Is there almost like an ombudsman? Is there a political group that hold or should hold politicians absolutely bang to account for the things that they say? I don't know, because we wouldn't have any politicians left, would we?
No, I don't think we would.
And that's a sad statement to say, isn't it? That's it's quite indicting on us as a society, because it's not only the UK. You can go to, you could go across the pond into America. We've obviously got some good friends in America, and they talk all the time about their concerns over various sort of political parties and political people and stuff. And you could go around every country in the world. So, is it almost a given that if you are a politician that you lie? Because Labour aren't in at the moment, but there'll be some of their politicians will lie. Lib Dems aren't in, some of their politicians are lying. So is it just the state of the country that we're in? I don't know.
It's a good question. It is a good question. Certainly, I've got no faith in any of them. I think they are there for their own personal gain more than they are for our benefit. What
So,
about yourself?
does that? Sorry, just before you jump in, Andy. So does that not raise a bigger question in terms of? So if they're in it for their personal gain, surely we have to look at, and wow, this is an even bigger question. Like the actual democratic process, and actually, is the democratic process even valid?
No.
You know what I mean? Because if the democratic process is that people vote for the party or the person that they want to represent them, if they're then not representing them because they're doing it for their own gain, it's a whole system not just flawed.
Exactly. And I'm totally with you on that one. And I think this is where we fall. When you think about democracy, you're talking about representation. You're talking about idea. You know, whether there's an ombudsman that holds them to account, that should be us. You know, that should be us. So
Yeah.
there is, like you say, there is political ombudsman where we can go to and say, look, our politicians are up to no good. Will you take into account? And they'll say no, because basically they pay our wages, so we can give a shit about what you think. But ultimately, we are the ombudsman that should hold our politicians to account. The way democracy should work is we select somebody, not necessarily voting for a party. We select somebody who represents our wishes. So we say, look, we're giving you a mandate to rule. This is what we want you to do. And then they get into office and they say, right, do this. Get in your house for the next 2 years. Get in your house. You're not coming out. That's our decision. We'll tell you what to do. No. We put you there so you can carry out our wishes. I didn't say I want to stay in my house for 2 years. I didn't say I want to ponce around wearing a mask. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. Who knows? The information is out there.
However, the person that lives next door to you, who also wants that person to represent their wishes, who voted for the same person, I'm not saying you did or didn't vote for them, but vote potentially for the same person that you did, they might want to stay in the house, wear a mask, and that's the problem that you get, because even within, when you vote for a party or you vote for a political regime, even within that, let's just say all three now vote, and whether we did, whether we didn't, I don't necessarily need to know that, but let's say us three voted and us three all voted the same, and we all voted, take your pick, either Conservative or Labour or Lib Dem or Green Party or Monster Raven Looney Party, or whatever it may be. I might perceive what I want out of that political party something completely different than you and something completely different than Andy. So therefore, when you're saying, oh, I don't want to be told to be in, I want them to tell me that. I'm not saying I don't play devil's advocate. No, I'm playing devil's advocate. But I might want them, because I've put them in a position to rule and to make informed judgments. I might want them to then tell us what to do, because if you don't, you're just left with complete anarchy, because then it's mob rule and everybody does whatever they want.
No, it's not. It's not anarchy. We say, this is what we want. I want you to deliver that for us. You know, and if you want to stay in the house, you might stay in the fucking house.
But you might want something different than I might want, yet we might have voted for the same people.
I don't think we would, because if I wanted something different, we wouldn't be voting for the same people. You'll be voting for.
Well, we would, because what we are now, the spectrum of politics, you used to have Labour over here and Conservative over here, and let's face it, they're the only two parties that are pretty much going to get in power here. A bit like America, you have Democrats and Republicans. But what's happening now is that politics is now doing this. So actually, there's a much shorter distance in terms of left wing and right wing between Tory and Labour. So the differences between the parties are actually much smaller.
No, I agree with you there, but what I don't agree with is that if we want different things, that we're going to vote for the same people. That indeed is perhaps part of the problem, in that what we're saying is that there isn't a choice, because if we say we're going to vote, and both you and I say we're going to vote for the same people, but we want different things, then surely the problem there is not enough choice, that the options aren't the right options for us.
It isn't, though, because there's myriad options within that one party, because you might agree with, and you might agree with the Tories on their fiscal policy, but you might disagree with but you might agree with them on the fiscal policy, but you might disagree with them on their immigration policy. But you might agree with them on X policy or Y policy. So there's lots and lots of different areas within that one party, and you might have a difference of opinion. We could agree on the fiscal policy, say, right, I'm going for Tories for that, but we might disagree on the immigration policy. But because generally, over all of the policies that you agree with them, that outweighs the ones that you don't, so therefore you vote for them.
So are you saying choice is an illusion?
Oh, that's a whole different.
Because if I'm voting on the basis of that and you're voting on the same basis or different basis, but for the same people, then choice is an illusion. Neither of us are getting what we want.
No, you might be right. Yeah, well, I potentially agree with you there, and that's a decent question, because you've got, let's break it down, make it really, really fundamentally basic. There's 10 areas of government, there's 10 policies, and the Conservatives have 10, and the Labour have 10, Lib Dems have 10, Monstrave and Looney parties have 10. And out of those 10, you agree with 7 out of the 10 in terms of what the Tories are saying. For Labour, you agree with 4 out of the 10, and Lib Dems, you agree with 3 out of the 10 or whatever. So therefore, you're going to vote for the Tories, because out of those 10 areas, you agree with their policy on 7 out of those 10.
I'll never vote for Tories.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I'm devil's advocate. But what would happen is that you now you might vote Tory because you also agree with 7 out of 10, but actually your 7 might be slightly different than my 7. It's just that the other options don't fulfill as much of the criteria as you want them to. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying, but my issue comes with it is that they put forth a manifesto, which they're expected to adhere to, and then don't.
Well, yeah, expected to.
So, exactly. So they're expected to adhere to it, and then they don't. So what you're saying is, let's go with your argument there for a second. You voted Conservative because 7 out of the 10 things that they said they're going to do, you agree with. The other 3 aren't important to you, so you couldn't care less whether they go along with it or not.
No, it's not. It's
less
important. Not important. Yeah, it's not that not important.
Right.
They could be really fundamentally important. It's just that the ones that I agree with them outweigh the ones that I don't.
Yeah. So ultimately, the 7 things you expect them to go and do, they then don't go and do it, or alternatively, they'll do it in a way which is beneficial to them, much less beneficial to you, where they'll gain more than you ever will out of it. And in fact, it will probably affect you negatively, as is what we're tending to see from the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think Labour have got a great track record either in their levels of honesty or their levels of delivery of governance. I think it's all thoroughly disappointing. I think when we talk about the options that are there in front of us, and you look, let's just let's not just even take it on a local level, like where you elect your local politician. If you look at about it recently, I don't know how comfortable you are with it. I know it's the system. We know how the system works. The system, I think we would agree, is potentially broken. But just recently, we've just had a prime minister, shall we say, selected by their own party. Now, we didn't, round here we voted for Fiona Bruce. Well, I didn't, but Fiona Bruce got in fairly comfortably last time. And she was a Conservative MP, if you listen to this abroad. So that's who we vote for to represent our wishes. And it's up to you whether you decide whether she represents us or not. I have my opinion, you have yours, and the fact they can be totally different, so we can still be friends. And that's a nice way to look at it. However, just recently, the way it works, we know it's how it works, that if the Conservative Party is selecting a new leader, which they just had to do because it turned out to be Boris Johnson is a massive lying bastard, and they got discontent with his lies for whatever reason. Surely not for their own personal gain, so that they can get in and lie to us. Surely not. Well, that's not what they wanted, is it? But they then select a leader, and by selecting a leader of the Conservative Party is governing the UK. They're selecting a new prime minister, and I'm not wholly comfortable with that. And I certainly wasn't wholly comfortable with the choices that were put forward. I mean, Sunak or Truss, were you happy with either of those?
But are you not almost arguing against yourself? In as much as in the democratic system, we voted for Fiona Bruce, let's say, who we then put our trust in to represent us. So when she then votes for who she believes to be the leader of the Conservative Party, is she not then, especially by proxy, putting forward our wishes, and we've put our faith in her and selected her. So then, whoever she selects, we go with.
That is theoretically how democracy works, but I don't know how democratic that is because well, do you know what I mean? The winner wins, and they get to represent us. That's the way, But for the most part, I don't think anybody wins by that happening. I certainly don't feel like I'm represented. I certainly don't feel like my wish is represented. But then again, I didn't vote Conservative, so why would I?
Yeah.
Am I just a bitter, truculent old man? Don't answer that. That's a rhetorical question.
I was going to say, this is about the time Andy comes in and goes, yeah.
Yep. But do you not see the problem with that, though? Do you not see the problem? Were you happy with the two options? Don't get me wrong, it wasn't our decision to make. Like we say, if you remember the Conservative Party, it's your decision to make. Were you happy with the idea of Truss or Sunak leading you? Andy, were you delighted by either of those possibilities?
Well, I don't really know much about Truss anyway. But then Sunak, like, how many billions did he write off to his mates over COVID and all that? So it's like, well, he's already got a bad track record. But then when they did that, I watched a couple of question time stuff, like when they go head to head. And all he was doing is like saying, "Oh, you're going to do this," and all that. It's like, hang on, what have you just been doing the last couple of years? And it's just like, we haven't voted a prime minister for years, have we? Because Boris wasn't voted in. It was May.
Well, no, Boris did call another election, to be fair, afterwards, and
yeah, but
his majority.
It's like when Liverpool won the league. It was during COVID times. It don't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count for anything.
All records are expunged for that period of time.
I'll agree to that one. As long as we keep Use Your Illusion 1 as the most popular. But,
Whoa,
look, that just proves democracy doesn't work. The 3 people preferred Use Your Illusion 2, and yet Use Your Illusion 1 was voted the most popular.
Unless you're a millionaire, you're not going to benefit from politics at all. Like,
well, no, this is quite true.
Simple as that.
I do.
I mean, it does seem jobs for boys, doesn't it? It does seem as though and before we get sued, I don't know the workings. I don't know exactly who put the tenders in and what the tenders were, but it appeared as though we've got lots of money to be made out of protective equipment, and what we'll do is we'll give it to a company that's part owned by a brother-in-law of a cabinet minister or whatever it was. But you're just thinking like, really? Like, is that really open and transparent?
Well, here's a question though, right? Here's a question: why isn't open and transparent? Why can't you go on Google, pull up that information, get a categorical answer to it? Why isn't it?
Because it probably isn't. Because it probably is underhand. That's and therefore is that. Well, it is. It's censorship, I suppose, of information that maybe should be out in the general populace that isn't. I don't know. I just think I disagree with. I disagree with the American system in as much as certain areas have certain weighted, and it's not necessarily sort of first past the post as such, because somebody can get more votes but then not be in power in America. And I sort of disagree with that, but I am sort of losing faith in what system works. And do you want to go down a dictatorship? No. You want to surely democracy is the way to go, but I mean, I genuinely don't know what the answer is. Honestly, I'm sitting there thinking, God, I don't know.
I agree with you. Democracy is the right way to go because you're not going to please everybody.
We can't please all the people all the time.
You can't.
The famous saying, if you please the majority of the people the majority of the time, you're actually on the right side of what it is. You'll never please all the people all the time.
I would agree with that, but at the moment, it doesn't seem to be the majority that are getting pleased. It seems. I try to choose my words much better than that. But it doesn't seem to me the majority seem to be getting what the majority wishes. It seems to be beneficial of a very small and elite bunch of people. And when you talk about,
is that not always been the case though?
I don't know if it has, and just now it's not obfuscated like it used to be. It's there, it's obvious, and it's in our face, and nobody cares because you can't change it. You still get the same Etonian idiots ruling us.
So when was the last time that a political party, whether it be Conservative or Labour, let's say, because Lib Dem have never, yes, there's been the odd coalition government with them, but they're never gonna have enough to sort of win an election on their own. When was the last time that, and I'm going to throw out the figure, and I don't know, and you won't have the numbers, so it's a bit of a rhetorical question, that any political party had any more than 55% of the populace saying they're doing a good job? Because the opposition is always, do you know what I mean?
I can tell you.
Like it's always.
I can tell you when politicians are popular and when we get a backing is when we're at a war and we're winning it.
Well, because war makes money.
War does make money.
That's because war makes money, and therefore, and I don't know whether or not we are quite. Again, I'm going to say I'm not going to dive into American politics. I don't know whether or not our politicians are quite in the pocket of big corporations as America are, but there's certainly a vast amount of people that make a lot of money and will be lobbying effectively for us to go to war because they make money.
Well, don't forget. So when all of a sudden Mr. Joe Biden announces we're giving 85 billion more for defense, 85 billion or whatever, that's probably small fry for what he's actually given, and they promise and pledge all this extra money. What they're not saying is this is for defense. What they're going to say is these are for our buddies who sell us the guns. We're giving them the money. You know what I mean? That's where it goes. Let's be honest. And I'm not getting into gun ownership and whatever like that. We're not getting into anything like whether war is right or war is wrong. But I know certainly when we spoke recently, I forget who it was, who said about the recent wars in Afghanistan and whatever. The plan was never for it to be a short war. It could have been over very, very quickly. The plan was it's prolonged because the more we spend on it, the more popular our president becomes. And not only that, our pals get richer. And if our pals are getting richer, our back pockets get stuffed nicely. You know, and I don't think it's any different in the UK. I don't think it's any different in the UK. And I don't think it's any different during the pandemic as well, where the people of Pfizer got richer and the media companies that were sponsored by Pfizer got richer. But you know, I'm not saying that COVID was made up. I'm not saying that. Just saying,
that's a whole different podcast.
I am not saying that, but there are people who engineered a way to be successful out of it.
I think when you look at COVID, and I'm not saying that it's been made up, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, or it was, you know, created in a laboratory, or did it come from a bat on a wet market in wherever, Wu-Tang or wherever it was, you know. I'm not saying that. I think you go through history, and there's always winners and losers in wars and pandemics and this and that and that. And I think it's taken a few, I say clever people, maybe not clever, but streetwise, insightful people that have made decisions that then have been profitable. I do think that we need to see that the papers and the transparent and have an open transparency in terms of what was the bidding process, who were the tenders, what was the decisions behind the decisions to give the tenders to the companies that they did. Because I don't know whether that's in the public domain. It probably should be, and if it is, then I apologise. But you know, why was it given to them?
They've already talked about that, and then they said they won't disclose that because it was during a pandemic.
Yeah, so that's
hiding behind that.
Yeah.
But there's one guy, wasn't there, that signs them all off, and he's supposed to like review all the tenders and stuff, and he has the final say. And all of a sudden, his whole family's bought like houses and all sorts, haven't they? In cash. Right.
Convenient, isn't it?
See, that's horrendous. If it's one person, and sure, you know that one person, I don't care how secure he I don't mean physically and safely secure, but I mean maybe politically secure. I don't care how secure he feels. You know, if it's one person, he can be got to, and and I'm sorry, but
it should be I think it is. I think it is supposedly a board, but he does have a lot of weight to it. But he's older than like Biden and all them, so he's like, well, should be retired. I think politics should be capped at 50, let alone
you've
60
said this before, Andy, haven't you? You bloody ageist. You've said this. No, I'm joking, but You have said though, haven't you, that
Have you ever turned it on, the politics during the day? You know, like when it's just like a live feed into the
House of
Westminster or
Commons,
whatever it's
yeah.
House of Commons. Half of them are asleep. It's like, hang on, I should be there asleep on the chair getting paid. It's all a farce. Like.
Yeah,
piss and biscuits. I'm sorry.
I mean, you throw it out there. You say, what's the age that you've got to, you've got to like be revalidated for your driving test or whatever at the age of like, is it 70, 75 or whatever?
It's younger than most politicians.
Like, yeah. So is it right? I don't know. I don't know. It's. I mean, going back to what we said right at the start. I mean, what are we, about half an hour in maybe or something? So, what if we're so disillusioned with politics? What's the alternative? Not having political parties and having almost the equivalent like regional assemblies, and you're governed by almost like a bit like go to America, but without having the the state system. Go back to the old Brexit and all of that Weave was on about. Should we be governed? Should we be governed by that?
And his jocular approach was onto something. I don't know. I don't know whether a local approach is necessarily the best way per se, but I do think localizing politics, where you can have more of a say and affect the things that are local to you, politics for local
it won't
people.
happen though.
It won't happen. Of course it won't.
It won't because of what you've just said. That we're probably too small a nation in order for it to be. There's probably too. This is going to sound weird. There's probably too many people that cross borders and live in one place and work in another place, and too many regulations. Whereas you look at, and I'm just saying this, and I'm not saying that they're rappers, I'm not. But you look in Australia, massive country. They have what, 5 states, 6 states, and that's it. So how many people from and I don't know how many people from the central territories, whatever, actually venture and go into New South Wales or Queensland or wherever, because the country's so big, it's going to take them like a day in a bloody car to get there, whatever. So you probably get very little migration between states, and I don't know. The fact that we're such a small island and we have so many different counties. I mean, would we county? Would we regionalise? Northwest, southwest? I don't know.
This is your idea. You tell me.
I'm
saying maybe you're onto something. Further explanation seems to be that you've not really thought it through.
I think we'll go to like one world council in like whether it's 50 or 100 years, and like a group run the whole world. But you sort of like, if you take money out of the equation, out of people's lives, then everything's 99% of problems are gone. Like I think I said it in a past thing where if you could live in a world without money, but you trade, I don't know, work or whatever, or each person contributes something, I think everyone will just get on, and there'll be probably no wars, no famine. There'll be all sorts.
That's almost
because
like
these people
society, though, isn't it? That is
exactly, and it's something that's achievable, but it doesn't benefit billionaires. And it's like American politics. Each state has its own, laws that don't transfer to other states. Not going down this road, but abortion and cannabis and
you've got gun
all
laws.
Sorts of stuff,
you've got all sorts. You've probably got gun laws. You've probably got sort of murder. On death row. So you've probably got some states that will approve it, some states that won't. So I don't think we'll get to the point where Big Brother and you have that one overarching.
I don't think we're that far away from that. I really don't.
There'll be a big war or a big pandemic or something that pops up soon, and then it'll be like, oh, let's all do this now, and everyone moves on.
I honestly think the road there has already been paved. I don't think we're that far away. I think the pieces have been moved into place, and that we are merely pawns, and maybe our leaders are little more than that themselves, and centrally by big business is much more prevalent and much more powerful than the politicians can be. That they dance to their tune. I genuinely believe that.
I think the idealist in me hopes that isn't the case, but perhaps the realist in me thinks there's an element of that.
I think there is. I think there is. And should we just? We'll circle back to that in a second. Well, I want to talk for a second, or at least think for a second about the control of information.
Yeah.
Because that has become super powerful. You look at the likes of Zuckerberg, who can influence the way that people vote by collecting all their information. I don't think that's necessarily what his original idea for Facebook was, but that's what it is now. He collects your information. They tailor advertising to make you do what you want to do surreptitiously. That's soft power. It's there and it controls you. You don't realize it controls you because you willfully let it do it.
But they also sell your information to third parties. So not only do they subliminally affect what you do and what you read and what you see.
So three pretty powerful things.
Before
you're worried about where you've sold your information been sold to.
They actually sell your information to other people, and
who will do exactly the same with it.
Who will do exactly the same, but perhaps not as discreet about it. What will happen is that these things. I think we've all come to realise these things are listening devices. So
if you're listening to the podcast, Gary is holding up a mobile phone.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
a cell phone for our American listeners.
So I think we all appreciate that they're listening devices, and you can have conversations with, friends, wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, whoever, and then all of a sudden, like within 2 or 3 hours, you jump on a social networking site, and there's an advert for something that would never have popped up yet. All of a sudden, pops up because you've probably just been talking about it for the last 2 hours, and you're like, holy moly, like how the hell did that happen, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
We all know that to be true, and I don't think anybody trusts mass media now. They've proven they can't be trusted. They've proven recently in the last couple of years that they cannot be trusted. They print their own agenda. It's the agenda mainly of the party or the people who sit on their board, of the large companies who they represent. We can't trust them. Can we trust social media?
No, not at all.
Not at
all. Because okay, certain social media sites, maybe the ones that aren't mainstream, you might get slightly more freedom of speech and freedom of expression. But certainly the mainstream ones are all, I would say they're all regulated to a certain extent.
Well, they are, and they're censored. But there's also the danger, though, with that. They're censored, and they want people to share their board members want a certain way to be seen and to be heard, and for you to be impacted by it. But there's the danger as well, though, that there is that much misinformation by people who believe one thing, that the serpent people are living amongst us, that kind of stuff, that they can share that information on social media as well, and to actually pick away at the bones and find the truth is nigh on impossible, which is what we talked about a little bit, earlier when we said, well, why isn't there that transparency?
It is nigh on impossible.
Obfuscated.
It's and you only have to look at. I mean, there's even a job now called social influencer. I mean, go back 5 years, and I remember going back years and years and years ago to Shift Happens, and there was a very famous presentation, and they talked about jobs that, the top 10 jobs that are in demand now didn't even exist 10 years ago, that type of thing. So, you go back now and you look at social influencer, you blogger, vlogger, whatever it may be, and you sort of think, okay, so these people are on social media, their job, clues in the name, they're a social influencer. Their job is to influence people to think or act or purchase in a certain way.
Yeah.
And you only have to look at somebody like someone like Elon Musk, who is he buying Twitter? Is he not? Has he done it? Has he not? But you only have to look at he sends out a tweet and says, "Keep your eye on this company. It's going to absolutely rock it." Excuse the pun, in the next however many weeks, and guaranteed that absolutely influences Wall Street and the value of that company absolutely soared.
It's not just that, though.
Because now he can, but he's so certain people, and I don't follow any of them on social media, but certain people are so influential that their minions and the people that work for Musk, and you look at your Tesla and your Project X, is that Elon Musk or whatever? These people they can affect so many others that actually Elon Musk could put out a massive mistruth. He could tell you that there's lizard people living on the moon. He probably thinks that's fair, but there's lizard people living on the moon, and so many people are influenced by that. You can guarantee that within a day, 2 days, 3 days, that either there's probes sent up there or there's some reaction to an absolute fallacy that some of these people have stated.
Well,
and that's the level of influence.
Yeah, but you're talking about Musk there, but if you talk about someone who intentionally influences, so like if you look at Dragon's Den, Stephen Bartlett on there, I'm not criticizing him, lovely fella, really nice chat, like to listen to him, says a lot of sensible things, does a lot of stuff for mental health, really like the guy. But he made his money out of literally doing that, setting up these people who are really, really popular. So can you just say this, and then other people will follow your opinion, and that, like you say, it's a genuine thing. But just taking it back to social media and information and misinformation that's out there. So climate change, is that real? Climate change is real. We know it's real.
Climate change is real, and if you look at the data and the statistics, but are you only looking at the statistics and the data they want you to see? I mean, that's the crux of it. The data would suggest that climate change is real. The world is warmer than it was 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago.
Is man responsible?
If you listen to the data, yes.
Yeah. And there indeed is a thing, because are you familiar with the World Economic Forum?
I'm going to go on.
There's videos online of the World Economic Forum. Go onto YouTube, it's on there, where they talked. It was a UN official talking at a World Economic Forum event, and they were talking how they influence Google so that when you search it, you get the information about climate change that they want you to see, not what is necessarily case. So,
but isn't that the case? But isn't that, sorry, just to jump in, but isn't that the case of any company can pay to be effectively higher listed on websites? So companies can pay.
Do you not think there's a danger though with that? We're not talking about companies. We're talking about politicians here who are, as we said at the start of this, there to represent our wishes. And what they're doing is corrupting the information that you see. So you think, oh, I need to look at my carbon footprint. I'm the one who's to blame. I'm the responsible for global warming. Me. I need to get myself a Tesla. I need to put some money in Elon Musk's pocket. Do you not think that's the danger? 70%, more than 70% of the pollution that's put out into the world, into the atmosphere, is created by just 100 companies. Just 100 companies, So they can punish you, they can tax you, and they can treat you like you're responsible. But actually, no. Let's go back to these companies and look at what they're doing. And then actually, let's look at the elite. Look at the richest 1% of people. The carbon footprint of the richest 1% is twice the size of the poorest 50%. But that information is kept away from the top Google spots because they want you to look and you to feel like you're responsible. That misinformation is intentional. It's put there by politicians for their own end. Do you not think that's a concern? That goes deeper than me than say W.H. Smiths putting themselves up there when who's got the cheapest curly whirly. You know what I mean? It's much more severe.
But fundamentally, it's the same argument. Fundamentally, what you're saying is that people
I think you're in danger of excusing their behaviour here, guys.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that people can influence at the very, very, very highest level, the information that you receive.
We know we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we know we do, absolutely. And is that right? No. What can you do about that? Nothing, because these big companies, Google and Yahoo and all of that, are massive behemoths of companies. Facebook, you know, you look at your Elon Musk Group and you Tesla and all that. They're huge companies. So you look at Microsoft and you look at Google. You buy Microsoft computer and you get Google installed. They're two huge companies that effectively are synonymous with each other. So you use them. So you're using a device, Microsoft, let's say, there are others available, to access a web browser, Google, there are others available, to find information. And what we're saying is that actually you can't necessarily trust that information is the information that you want, because it's been orchestrated so that you only see that. That can't be right.
You Google Tallboy Radio. Nobody else is trying to come up with that. We've cornered that market. Don't you worry about that.
Well, that amen to that, brother. And you Google which is best, use your illusion 1 or 2, and 2 comes up. So I'm just saying.
It's more commercially successful. But here's the thing, though. Are we saying we've given up? Are we saying we've given up, that the corporations have already won? If you're saying, you literally just said then, and I'm not blaming you, because I think probably a lot of people feel this way. And do I feel that way myself? I don't necessarily do, but I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to fight against it. That these guys have already won. There's nothing you can do against corporations that big. It's almost like when Cyberdyne became self-aware in Terminator 2, which we talked about last week, bringing it back to Use Your Illusion 2 again. But is that the danger of they already won?
They won 50 odd years ago, or 80 years ago, when like plastics, when they created plastics, and all the companies like paid politicians and adverts and all that sort of stuff to make people use it. And like people years ago used to reuse stuff, like whether it's glass bottles, eggs, as like, for example, you just pick them up in a basket and stuff like that. Like our grandparents and all that, and now it's like everything's plastic, and then they blame it on us. Oh, well, you use all this plastics, that will provide an alternative. And you see that with carrier bags. You pay 10p, 50p now, or whatever it is. What's changed? Like, other than just charge you for a carrier bag.
That's all the problem. They're making money out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Solve the problem.
I don't know whether it's real. I genuinely don't know, but there was something that came up on social media that I'm on, and it came up on a Twitter feed, and it was an Australian news anchor that was responding to a Greta Thunberg speech. And if you haven't seen it, and I hope it's real, because if it's real, it's brilliant. And she's going on about, like, how dare you, and she's teary and all of this, and how dare you spoil our planet and all this. Basically, this Australian news anchor, I would say, I don't know whether he's a genuine news anchor, I hope he is, but for like, I don't know, like whatever, Channel 9 News or whatever. And he's like, and there you go with your posh little iPhones and your posh little this. And when was the last time you went out and you sit in front of your screens that kick out all these emissions, and then you travel around in all your cars, and you're not going to bike anywhere because you can't do that. And then you jump on a private jet, and then you go to another country, and the biggest polluter that you've got are private jets. If you don't jump on a jet, you jump on a train, which is equally as bad, but not quite. And and he basically hammers Greta Thunberg, and he actually at the end of it, you go, yeah, fair play to you, kid. I don't blame you for that. And he says, and you're in this generation that you want the next this, and you want the very best this, and you want the iPhone 27 that's only just been released in there, and you want the iPhone this, and you want the trainers this, and you want this, and the old school. And basically, he absolutely hammers her for about 2 minutes. And we're sort of in that. We are sort of in that generation. Get back to Andy said about the, is it our fault? Or maybe not our fault, but is it our fathers, our great grandfathers, our great Climate change is happening 1,000 years ago. Climate change is happening 500 years ago. Climate change is happening 200 years ago and 100 years ago. So is it our fault?
We certainly aren't the only factor. We aren't the only factor. I think that's definitely fair to say.
But are we yes, we're a contributory factor, but are we
how big
a significant? How big? How big a factor? How big a factor are we?
And when people like this are obfuscating, I've used that word 3 times now. It's obfuscating 4 now. The actual results. We're never going to know that, and that indeed in itself is a problem. Like Andy says, carrier bags, plastic straws. Remember plastic straws? You bastard! You can't drink your cocktail through a plastic straw. You can't use a plastic straw. You can have this inferior cardboard product that will dissolve halfway through the drink. You can have that instead. Well, I tell you what, you can wear this mask that's not going to disappear for the next 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years. And be sure to make sure you're shoving that thing up your nose and dipping it into this little bit of plastic here that's going to be around for another generation or two. Don't you worry about that. But your straws,
it made me laugh. It's somebody, again, social media, I apologise. And there's a famous video of basically this sort of World Wildlife Fund sort of company group of people that they effectively rescued a sea turtle, and it got a plastic straw stuck up its nose. And it's a bit of a harrowing video, and I get it. And the turtle was very uncomfortable, and they were like, "What is that in there?" And they got upset pliers and stuff, and they were, "Oh my god, it's a straw!" And it was a bloody big straw sort of thing that this turtle got stuck up its nose. And somebody put, "Oh, so that's shocking, but this is okay." And they basically superimpose, like the masks that we got over the whole of the turtle's face, and they're like, "Well, that's okay." And it's just like, yeah, I suppose that there are elements of what's acceptable and what isn't, and it's acceptable only if the big companies and the politicians say it is, and if they say it is, then it's okay, and actually it sort of isn't, and the plastic bits that you used to dip your pipette into, and stuff. Well, your pipette was bloody plastic, and your thing that read whether you got your 2 lines on it, that was plastic, and all that. And somebody did it, and they showed a photo, and they went, all of this, and and they stripped the mask off. You got your little runners bits in your mask that you could shape, and all of that, and so they got all the different bits from the mask, all the different bits from the testing kit. So you got your little plastic vial that you had to put your squeezy things in, your drops into. Well, that came in a plastic bottle, and then you got your little vial that held the drops. That was plastic, and then you got the actual thing that you once you sort of swabbed up your nose, you stirred it round a bit, and then you then dropped it onto that little strip of thing that got you to. That was plastic, and it said all of this plastic just to tell you that you got COVID. Yeah, all of that's absolutely fine, and nobody said anything about that. But if you go to McDonald's, or other restaurants are available, you go to McDonald's and drink out of a plastic straw, oh my god, you're damaging the whole world. It's just like, come on, like there's levels, aren't there?
There is levels, and this is the thing. We're not saying those tests are necessary. Let me make that very clear. If you listen to this, we're not saying those tests weren't necessary, that they weren't needed. All we're saying is, let's just look at things sensibly. Let's look at things through an unbiased eye. So we've talked about politics. I think we've ultimately danced around. We're not even mentioning the royal family yet, but we've danced. we've danced around the whole problem of politics, democracy, choice, and decided that maybe it doesn't work for us, perhaps as it should. I'm not putting words into your mouth when I say that, am I? Hopefully not.
No, we live in a democracy. I do think democracy is the right way to go. As I said, I wouldn't want to live necessarily in a dictatorship and this, that, and the other. So, yeah, and I think democracy is the right way to go if it's done correctly, and if we're not lied to. And yes, I try to stay away a little bit from making sort of really outrageous and slanderous and potentially liable statements, but politicians do lie on occasions and have been seen to lie and knowingly lie. So that can't be right, surely.
It's only a lie if they get caught.
Yeah, very true. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? But here's the question, though: how do we fix it? How do we fix it? That's the challenge.
Stop. It's easy. Tell people stop being cunts.
Oh.
Well, you can tell them, but will they listen?
Yeah.
They
Well,
went, and going back to what Andy said about your moneyless society, yes, it would work if everybody had their place and had and could contribute. We're in a position that's never going to happen now. So I agree with you, Andy, to a certain extent. Yes, that might work, and you go back to what civilization was like a while ago, and and everybody contributed and did various jobs, and you might get a barter system, and I've got loads of wood there, and you've got loads of apple over there, so let's just exchange a little bit, and I need that, and you need that, and all of that. I get that, but that's never going to happen now. So what do we do? As of October 2022 moving forward. Well, what is the answer? Because I think we're pretty much all three of us are saying that actually the way that the politics is at the moment, politicians are at the moment, we don't trust them.
It's got to keep dancing to the tune, aren't you? the
have we?
people in like France are not doing strikes and all that, but that's only for like prices of fuel and all that. And I don't think they've seen the prices over here. Otherwise, there'll be riots.
Listen,
what was the quote? There's a quote about it's something to do with swimming against the tide or something, or and it basically says, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember it, but person A says, oh, aren't you silly to try and go against the tide? And then person B says, no, you're only silly if you don't then try to predict the way that the tide is going in the future, sort of things. It talks about, do you try and swim against it, or do you just go with it up to a point and then try to influence then where it goes, if that makes sense? And I can't quite remember the quote now, but it's you basically it was talking about you basically wasting your time if you're trying to swim against the tide, because at some point that tide's just going to take you with it. What you can try to do is then influence when, or try to predict when that tide then changes course, and influence when that happens. And I sort of get that. I do sort of think if you try and swim against the tide, you sort of, you are fighting a bit of a losing battle when it comes to politics. I do. I think that. I don't think whoever's in power, Tories that are in at the moment, it could be Labour, but there'd be so many people arguing against Labour that it wouldn't really matter.
What happens if everybody swam against it?
But everybody won't, and that's the thing. I agree with you. If everybody did, then you would perhaps potentially change the course of that tide, which therefore means that you might then be able to influence it. But you'll never get to that point. You just won't. And that might be defeated, but is it realism? Maybe. I don't know. But there will be people that don't want to swim against the tide, and that's the issue. And it goes back to a fundamental question that you asked about, 40 minutes ago, Ad, or whatever. Is choice an illusion then? Because you might choose to swim against the tide, you might choose to swim with the tide, but unless other people then do the same as you, your choice is sort of irrelevant, really, because you need X number of people need to also think the same as you in order to influence it.
Doomed to failure, especially when the sway of opinion is there to influence people to behave in a certain way, and you choose not to. That's the danger. That's the danger. I think, my fear is, if the battle isn't already lost, then how do we win it? How do we turn that tide? How do we take back control of the information? How do we take back control of power? How do we take back control of democracy in terms of the way that it was intended, that these guys who first set out our uncodified constitution as we have here in the British Isles, and set it out in a way that they were going to represent our people, because there are good people. There are good people that have been good politicians in the past, the likes of Clement Attlee, who founded the NHS, with that truest intention and a freer point of entry. These people did things for the people of the UK not because, at the risk of sounding like John F. Kennedy, not because it was easy, because it was hard and it was worthwhile. These are the people that we should be celebrating. Where are those people now? Risk of sounding like that fella. No, not that fella. Sorry, what's her name? Delia Smith.
Where are you?
Exactly. Where are you? Where are those people now? And should we be those people? Should we stand up? Should we, as Tallboy Radio, be the voice of the people, the voice of reason, and say, no, we're not going to take this nonsense anymore. We're not having it. Liz Truss, if that's your real name, it probably is. That's irrelevant. But we're not going to tolerate this bullshit. You're an idiot. You are not going to rule us. It is beneficial to ourselves. You're going to do it. It's beneficial to yourself and your cronies because that's what the Conservative Party does. We're not going to stand for it. Do you know what? We're going to take back the power and we're going to get. I don't know what are we going to do? That's the challenge.
I think. Unfortunately, I don't think, and you just made a comment there, Liz Truss, and you're an idiot, and and you Tory cronies, and the issue that I've got, and the problem I have is that I don't just think it's Liz Truss, and I'm not saying she's an idiot, and I'm not saying it's all Tories are cronies. I think the issue that you've got is it wouldn't matter whether it was Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Munster Raven, Looney Party. It wouldn't matter.
I think the Munster Raven Looney Party would matter, but that's another matter. That's another problem.
Because they all lie. If the Munster Raven Looney Party genuinely got into power, there's absolutely no way that they would make good on their manifesto.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I haven't. I'm making an assumption that they couldn't because it'd be so outlandish that it would just never happen. So, and that's my whole point, and that's the crux of politics for me at the moment.
You're saying
I'm a little bit.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm a little bit. I don't really care because everybody is the same. And
have they worn us down? Have they worn us down to the point where you can't make a difference?
Maybe. And the nuances would be different. You know, Tories lie about A, Labour lie about B, Lib Dems lie about C, Green Party lie about D. What the nuances are different, but I think fundamentally, and I haven't really thought about it to this extent, really, other than for the last hour or whatever. I think fundamentally, I've just lost faith in politics, and the what's the phrase? I think I've lost the trust that even though they might have been voted in through a democratic process, that they can still act in the best interest of everybody that voted them in, if that makes sense.
Do you fear that there's enough people out there that still believe that's the case? Or that just accept that there is no other way and that's just what we're doomed to suffer?
I don't know. And that's actually a scary thought as well.
That's my fear.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, one thing, like I say, we were worried actually we couldn't do an hour on this because we literally found out an hour before we were due to jump on here that unfortunately we weren't going to be sat here talking about Lego. And I can tell by the look on Andy's face he wish he was talking about Lego right now. But we found out an hour ago that we were going to do it. But I set you guys a challenge then. When we decided we were going to talk about politics, I came up with the idea of finishing on an acronym, purely something because I've come up with one myself. So it was selfless. It was very much like a Tory politician. I've done something that suits myself and suits my own end. So we were going to call this episode Politics.
Or Labour, or Lib Dem, or Munster Raven, any political party.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But politics is in P.O.L.I.T.I.C.S. That's you'll see. If you've clicked on it to listen to it, you know what.
Adam sent us this. I should say about an hour and a half ago now, whatever it was. And I didn't get the first bit. I was thinking people only something, and then the end bit I got to turns into cow shit. that was the ticks bit at the end. But
I think that's good enough, dude. I think that's good enough because it has turned into cow shit quite quickly. Andrew, did you manage to come up with one acronym?
No. Well, I did. I did do. Yeah, I was gonna say I jumbled the words up and came up with solicit, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
Silent P, obviously.
Yeah, it's there. I'll tell you what I came up with. Which I came up with. I was putting my little lad to bed. He was telling me how much he needed to poo and that, so we had to sort that out mid sleep. Not him, not me. It's happened before. I'm nearly 50. No, it hasn't happened. Powerful overlords indefinitely terrorizing its countless subservience.
I like that, dude.
Yeah, it's quite.
Sounds like a Morrissey lyric.
It does. And you know what? I might finish this episode on a Morrissey lyric.
In fact, yeah, no, let's not end on that. It turns into cow shit. It's way better.
Turns into cow shit. Yeah, go on. I'll let you finish with that one, but yeah. So go on then, folks. We've depressed you for an hour. You're going to be depressed for the rest of your lives if we're right. So let's just say so longs.
Yeah, I don't think we have depressed those people.
I'm
but for a political episode, I think we've tried to keep it relatively upbeat, and I don't know, maybe that's just me. Look, there hasn't actually been that many sort of left turns, and I thought there would be, and I thought we'd talk about a lot more other stuff, and we were sort of worried at the start about, oh God, off the cuff, how we're going to sort of fill an hour talking about politics. We've talked about the different parties, and we've maybe talked about the influence of sort of corporate media and social media and big corporations. But I think we've sort of, we've been chatting for about an hour now, almost non-stop, with hardly any left turns, which is sort of not necessarily unheard of, but uncommon uncommon in our episodes. We haven't spoken really about a lot of other things, so I enjoyed it in a strangely sort of weird way. And we don't try to make it very deep, but I've enjoyed it. Just thinking about what is the future? Where are we going to go? How is it going to work? Are we all doomed? In the nicest way.
In the last 10 weeks or so, we've managed to touch on the two cornerstones that you should avoid during polite conversation. That's politics and religion.
Yeah.
We're here in politics, so we're going to wish you a fond good night. And actually, do you know what? I tell you what. First things first. Let's give a shout out to Ollie's. We're probably wishing that we aren't going to do that on this episode, but nonetheless.
Whoa, dude!
Go on.
We've had an extra country.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! The good news, yeah. Those political saviors.
Forget all that.
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Dale, if you've been on your travels and you've downloaded, thanks very much.
If not, if someone in Saudi Arabia who's interested in Guns N' Roses, well done. Good on you. Good on you. What's your country's track record on? Anyway, listen. If you like pretzels, not chocolate pretzels, if you like nut mixes and the like and olives, then get yourself along to ollies.com. Use the promo code Tallboy Radio if you're based in the UK, Saudi Arabia, and you will get 20% off your order if they haven't pulled it by the time they've heard this episode. But I'm sure they'll be all fine and dandy with it all. So yeah, you're quite right, dude. Country number 51. I completely forgot that one.
Yeah, I literally just came to that. I was like, oh my God, I forgot something. Oh my, yeah, there you go.
Well done. So, let's say the goodbyes first, because I'm going to finish on a Morrissey quote. But do you want me to go first, so you can one up me?
It wouldn't be the same if you didn't finish on a Morrissey quote. So I will say, guys, I've quite enjoyed tonight in a strangely sort of weird way, and that was super. That was actually slightly better. So that was
for our audio listeners, which far outweigh our visual viewers. That's what you're talking about.
So the first beer that I drank was the Ultra Phase. So that was the North Brewing 8.5% dipper. That was actually really nice. But the one that I actually preferred was the Beavertown Solar Flare. So hazy double IPA 8%. That was much, not much better, but much better. Loved it.
Andrew?
Yeah, politics always annoys me. It's like one of the things, like it's like getting kicked in the nuts. It's just something I just hate. But I think there's only one. Like it's just remind me of a classic film, Ali G. I think he's the only guy that could save us in these dark times.
In these dark times, yeah, maybe. I was going to quote that
Booyakasha.
earlier when we were talking. Yeah, Booyakasha. I can't remember why. So, as I promised, if you're watching on YouTube, you know which T-shirt I'm wearing. If you're listening on audio, you're just going to have to guess, but I'm going to leave it on a Morrissey quote. So, I've been dreaming of a time when the English are sick to death of Labour and Tories and spit upon the name Oliver Cromwell and denounce the royal line that still salutes him and will salute him forever. Good night.